Welcome to Simply the Law of Life with Gary C. Johnson and Keith Casebolt.
If you are in the search of happiness, you found the right place. This is Simply the Law of Life. I'm Keith Casebolt and my good friend Gary C. Johnson.
And we're searching as hard as we can search, my friends. There's no question about it. We're digging, and we're digging deep.
We've been searching for a long time. This journey, and you always talk about, Keith, the life is a journey, and the journey is what matters, not the destination.
That's right.
We've been on a journey for almost 25 years to try to find happiness and peace in this little world we live in.
And the closest book we've ever found is this one, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which should be titled How to Be a Better Human Being.
Yeah.
But so, folks, how y'all been doing out there in the world, huh? Okay? This is a good world. It's a good life. I'm going to read you some things from a few books here, these self-help books, huh? And we'll see if we can't maybe get this journey going of trying to be a little bit more successful and a little bit more happy, huh?
Gary, let me ask you a question as we get into this, because whoever just turned the channel, or they've tuned in, or they're on Facebook or on the radio, is the biggest question we've got to ask ourselves is, do we really want to be happy? Because, I mean, if you don't, you can turn the channel right now, because we're talking about trying to get there.
I think everyone on this earth, every human being, was put here to be happy. Now, folks, all of you that are listening or watching or whatever, raise your hand if you're happy.
A little bit. A little bit.
Okay. Now, so why aren't you happy if you're not happy? Because you can choose to be happy.
Yeah.
Right? You say, oh, no, I can't. I've got too many blah, 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 family members and all of this stuff.
Bills,
especially the family, you know.
You just don't know everything that's going on. Now, wait a minute. You said we can choose to be happy, but didn't you have someone one time that called you and said, Gary, I like arguing? You know, this person didn't want to be happy.
The thing about it is, this Brené Brown wrote this book about shame. I thought it was just me, okay? But it isn't. I want to read you what one woman said about shame and the family, if I can find it.
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit last week about how it follows us all of our lives.
Most of the people that didn't raise their hand when I asked them if you're happy didn't raise it because of family. Okay? I can tell you that unequivocally.
Is that the biggest thing? The biggest thing?
Now, this book is all about shame, the shame we have, okay? And this is a woman, this is very short. I'm going to read to you this little, in this section here from this book. And see if this is applicable to any of you, okay? Because I think this is important. My dad's wife is younger than I am, and my mom's new boyfriend has been married 6 times. Now, this is a woman telling this story, so if it fits you, of why she's not happy, okay? My family is ridiculous. We're supposed to be comfortable with that, and that's supposed to be okay, because all families are crazy, right? Well, that only works when you're around other people who also talk openly about their families being crazy. When you're around people who pretend their families are perfect, it's not okay. In fact, it's very shameful because they judge you based on your crazy family members. You try to avoid the discussion and start talking about something else. When I see people admit something about their weird families and someone starts judging them and saying crappy things, I jump right in. I start talking about my family. If we all told the truth, no one would feel like they were the only ones with screwed up family. I try to help people in that situation because I've been there, and it's a lonely place to be.
So here we are losing out on happiness because we're concerned our last name could be connected to family members who maybe don't have the best reputation.
Or the shame of the family.
Yeah.
When, to get away from this shame, one of the things that addicts do, and you've seen it, every one of you see, they force them to go to meetings and they force them to share.
So they have to stand up and say, I'm an alcoholic or I'm an addict.
I'm an addict and this is my story. That helps them deal with that shame.
In other words, you got it out, you got it off your chest.
You're talking about it. This is what she said about family. She says, I can get around this if I'm around people that talk about their crazy families.
Oh, I see the
And we
meaning.
talk to each
Okay,
other.
now I get the meaning of where you're going. So if I'm with like people who have the same problem as I do, I'm okay because they're in the same boat I'm in, right?
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable.
And it's not bad. The shame is gone now.
And you're on their level.
And you're on
They're
their
not above you.
It's like she says, it's not, when you're around people who still pretend their families are perfect, it's not okay. In fact, it's very shameful because they judge you based on your crazy family members.
But Gary, doesn't that apply to like your monetary wealth, that in a class system, that if you're around people who are rich and you don't have that kind of money, you fill out a place, that you're more comfortable with the people that's on your level?
It shouldn't be that way, but it's true. Okay.
Yeah.
Each and every one of you is rich. Every one of you, you're rich because you're alive and you're able to see us and you're able to, if you can watch this, you're wealthy.
Got to tell you a story I've never told you. When
Okay.
I was in high school, there was a young girl that I wanted to go out on a date with, and I called her and asked her out, and she said okay. And that day, her father had bought her a brand new Corvette. I was driving an old Ford with no hubcaps, and I told her I can't make the movie. You know why? I was embarrassed.
Okay.
Because I was in a different class system and I thought that mattered. Now, years later, I realize it didn't matter, nor should it, but I actually allowed that to happen to me.
One of the richest people I know recently told me that he was happiest when he and his wife were struggling and lived in a trailer. Okay? It's not money that makes you happy, folks. It's the people around you. It's the crazy family. You've got to learn not to carry that shame. Okay?
But we do that instinctively. I don't even know where we get that from. Is it just human nature?
It's human nature. It's like this lady says. She said, it's a really pretty good book on shame, and that's how she spent her entire life studying shame.
So what has that kept all of us from doing? Asking the person out on a date, going after a job, being friends with someone who is wealthy?
Or whatever. I don't know how to say this, but we are all struggling to get through this world. And we're struggling really hard. And how do we do this struggle in such a way that we have some peace and contentment as we go through this life? How many times have I said on this show over the years, if you're in a situation where you're miserable, change it. Get out of it. You say, but I can't. Oh, put your brain to it. Now let me go one step further and tell you how to get out of that mess, okay? You give the job of getting you out of that mess, if you're miserable, to your subconscious. Now this is another book, and this is a really good book. And it's The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. And he talks about if you've got a real problem and you need to answer, and he talked about all the rich people in here that said, when I would get an idea, I would just take it in my brain and go over and over and over in it, and then I would go to sleep with that going on in my brain, and the next morning I would have the answer.
Didn't the great John Rockefeller take a nap every time that he needed to come up with an answer?
Edison did.
Yeah.
Every time they would. In fact, he's got one section in his book, Sleep and Go Rich, and that's where he talks about turning it over to your subconscious. But I want to read you a couple of things he says about, and he calls them profitable pointers in dealing with. Success means successful living. When you are peaceful, happy, joyous, and doing what you love to do, you are successful. Now think about it. Didn't say you're rich.
Okay, so stop right there. Everybody that's tuned in, if you're doing a job, whatever that job is, that you love, if you're driving a truck, if you're a teacher, whatever you're doing in life, coach, if that's what you love, then you're successful.
When you are peaceful,
Yes?
happy, joyous, and doing what you love, you are successful. Okay? And what else does he say? Find out what you love to do, then do it. If you don't know your true expression, ask for guidance and the lead will come. In other words, he says, ask your subconscious. This guy believes, and I agree with him, that the world is connected with what's called an infinite intelligence, which really is God.
Mm-hmm.
It's everywhere, that intelligence is. God's inside of every one of you. That same, and you all, each and every one of you have that same intelligence, okay? You do. Okay. Specialize in your particular field and try to know more about it than anyone else. A successful man is not selfish. His main desire in life is to serve humanity. There is no true success without peace of mind.
Wow.
Now, that's a fact. A successful man possesses great psychological and spiritual understanding. If you imagine an objective clearly, you will be provided with the necessities through the wonder-working power of your subconscious mind, and you all have this. Every single one of you has a subconscious mind that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it never stops working. The question is it going to be helping you do good things? Is it going to be helping you make you happy? Or are you, in your subconscious, going to be directing it to concentrate and dwell on miserable things?
Let me ask you something. Now, you talked about the successful people, and you said they want to give back. Let's look at this book right here, Think and Grow Rich. What amazes me about this book, Napoleon Hill came from, I think, Clintwood, Virginia, thereabouts, near Norton, Virginia. He grew up in a cabin with a dirt floor. But this guy went to Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, John Rockefeller, and he asked them all the secrets to success, and they told him. I mean, a guy from the most humble beginnings you could have, a cabin with a dirt floor, but he interviewed these people, and they told him and shared with him what their success was.
If you're quarreling and having problems and arguing, and it's a part of your life, I strongly urge you to buy this book, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and read it. Now, those of you that don't really need it will read it. Those of you that desperately need it will probably start reading it and toss it aside. And I mean, that's just, this book is an amazing thing on human nature and us, us as human beings. He talks about don't criticize, condemn, and complain. It never works.
I like the first chapter, Don't Kick the Beehive. And you know, a lot of people will get into this book, Gary, and they'll say, well, this is just common sense. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the bottom line, my friend, is we don't possess a lot of common sense, or we wouldn't need this book.
I'll read you a statistic in this book, if any of you are thinking about changing your lives. Now listen to this. You talk about something that might be scary. This is from, I thought it was just me, but it isn't. Talking about shame. Researchers consistently find that women suffer significantly more economic losses after a divorce, much more than their male partners. Think about that.
Is that because of perception?
No. Researchers agree that a woman's post-divorce income is driven by labor force participation. Women who work, especially those who have an education, can secure high-income jobs, do better after a divorce. Women who have not worked during their marriage face larger economic obstacles if they have stayed home, been a housewife, and taken care of the kids
Yeah, well, I can see that because they weren't the breadwinner, they weren't in the workforce, they were taking care of the home.
90% of children stay with their mothers. Only 1 in 4 divorced mothers does not have a court-ordered child support board.
Okay, I see where you're going now.
Only 1 in 4 divorced mothers does not have a court-ordered child support award. That's 1 out of 4. Among divorced mothers who have a support award, 50% receive the full amount, 25% receive only a part, and 25% receive nothing.
So not only does this affect the wife, but this affects the children because the children are living with the mother.
And it says that divorced parents, both men and women, are more likely to pay child support if they have an ongoing relationship with their children. It's just some things I'm sharing with you folks, and I know some of you are probably in that situation, some of you that didn't hold your hands up when I asked you if you were happy. And what I'm saying to you is you can choose how to look at things, and you can choose to be happy. You can choose the people you're around. You can choose to have a life. And guess what? You deserve it. I mean, why not? If anybody's going to be happy, why wouldn't it be you?
So Gary, is it as simple as us sitting here saying, why would I eat foods that I don't like, that I think taste bad? Why would I force that upon myself? Is that the same as thoughts? Why would I choose to look at thoughts or have thoughts take over my brain when they're not good ones?
You have to bring that book at the next time. Think How to Stop Thinking.
Oh, what a great book. And now look, after almost 25 years, what did we find out when we read the book, How to Stop Thinking? We found out we were wrong. For years, Gary and I were like, tell the chatterbox to shut up and just tell it you don't want to hear anything about these thoughts. And we found out when we explored this book, you can't make it shut up.
I don't know, for years I said, just tell your chatterbox to shut up. That's that voice in your head, okay? And I finally read this book. We find this book, I do, about how to stop thinking. And it says you can't shut the chatterbox up. You can't stop it. But you can step aside and say, I'm going to be a witness to what it's saying and remove myself from it and not necessarily buy into what it's saying to me. You can make that choice from a conscious level, but you can't stop that voice in your head.
Oh,
Any of you ever tried?
Yeah, I did. I did. You and I were doing a radio program one day, and you talked about stopping the chatterbox, and I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to tell it to shut up. I had to take a drive to Lexington that day, and when I got in the car, I was by myself, and I heard this little voice in the head say, finally, we're alone. Now we can talk about all the things that's going wrong in your life and all the problems Hey, about 45 minutes through the drive, I was like, good heavens, give me a break. That chatterbox and that voice was going over and over about things I couldn't do anything about.
The lesson today on this show is simple. Try to see if you can identify the things that make you that shame you. Now, most people won't talk about shame, okay? We all want to pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But if there's something that you're ashamed of, try to identify it and deal with it. Because if you don't, it will continue to nag at you and make you miserable. It will. Now, how do you do that? Turn it over to your subconscious, where all the infinite intelligence is, and say, hey, I need some help here. I need to figure out how to get away from this shame feeling so that I can have some peace of mind and some contentment.
Yeah.
And because I want to be happy. And say to your subconscious, I want to be happy. Help me figure out how to be happy.
So it's like when you ask somebody and they're on a vacation and a trip, and I've heard people say this, where are you from? And instead of them saying where they're from, they'll say Lexington. And I know full well the person is not from Lexington. Or if we're in our hometown, the hollow or the creek that you were from. Are we afraid that that's going to shame us if we say where we were born and raised?
I don't know. I never had sense enough to be ashamed of being from 3 Mile.
Nor,
In fact, I sort of enjoyed it.
nor did I from Fords Branch, but I always told people it was a suburb of Pikeville. Not much of a suburb with a dirt road. But that's the things the book is talking about that's holding people back from happiness. That are we afraid we're going to be found out? Is that it?
Regret is one of the things that's holding my friends back.
Mm-hmm.
You won't turn loose of the bad decisions you've made. Okay, everybody that's either listening or watching this show, hold up your hand if you've never made a mistake or a bad decision.
Boy, you're not going to see that happen.
I don't think a single hand went up.
Yeah.
Okay, how many of you have regrets because of those bad decisions? Huh?
How many of us have relived it for 40 years or 20 years? And you pointed out something really good about that. You say when you relive it, you're searching for an answer to it to somehow try to say, here's why it happened.
No, you're trying to change it.
You're trying to fix it?
You're trying to fix it, and you can't. And that's what you have to understand and let go of, my friends. You can't change anything that's happened in your past. You can't do it. It is impossible.
But Gary, no
and
wonder.
Thinking about it and pondering it and running it over and over in your brain is only going to make you miserable. It's not going to change the outcome.
But look what the media does. When there's a famous person that passes away, what's the media say about them? So-and-so passed away at 90 years old. They were disgraced when they were 35 and went bankrupt. Or it's like we bring up what happened in the past and we hold it no matter what this person has done.
Well, no. The choices you made in life, you have to live with. There's no question about that.
You own them, you move on.
They're yours.
Okay.
Own them. Own them. And how many times have I said to you, Keith, that if you made a ton of bad choices, many, many, many bad choices,
Yep.
that you look back at and see that's bad choices, okay? But there's a single human being in your life today that you wouldn't trade or have out of your life for any amount of money or anything, then all of those choices you made were the right choices that brought you to that point.
Yeah, or the understanding. You know, when you're talking, I'm thinking of 20 years ago, I came to you and said, oh, Gary, I made a stupid mistake. And you looked at me and said, yeah, that was stupid. Don't do it again. And I mean, that was your advice at the time, which meant so much to me because you didn't sugarcoat it. You just said, yeah, that was a dumb mistake, but don't do it again. Learn from it and move on.
That's right. That's all you can do.
And that was, what can I say, empowering.
And I'm wanting to empower you, my friends that are watching this, to be happy. I want to give you permission to be happy. And I want you to promise me that you will withdraw your permission from anyone that's making you miserable. No other human being can make you miserable without your permission, except your children.
Yeah.
There's always no matter what the rule is, there's always an exception, right?
But you know, that's got to be so good. I hope someone will leave Gary a message this week, Gary at GaryCJohnson.com, and say, I took your advice. I went up to the individual that was making my life miserable and said, I'm sorry, I'm withdrawing your permission. You can no longer do this because I am going to be happy.
And I am going to recognize that I have contact with the infinite intelligence of the universe, and that I have the ability to call upon it for help. It's like Napoleon Hill said, he stopped praying for things that he wanted, and he started praying and saying, thank you for what I've got.
Yeah.
And he said that made all the difference in the world in his life. When he stopped praying and asking to have things being given to him or for stuff,
Sure.
that he started praying and saying, "Thank you, God, for what I have."
Great way to start the day, to look at the blessings you have as opposed to the problems.
Yeah. So I think that it's a good world. It's an interesting world. It's an amazing world. And there is so much joy and happiness that you can have, my friends, if you will choose to embrace it and change your attitude, no matter what it is that looks so bad, flip it. I started judo law to flip the bad things that they tried to throw at me in my case. I'm telling you to flip the bad things in life and embrace them and move on.
Yeah. Back to chapter 1. Don't kick the beehive. If you want the honey, there's a good way to get it. Kicking the beehive is not the way to get the honey, right?
No. It's a way to get you stung a whole lot.
And it's the same way in life. This is our radio program that we've been doing for 23 plus years, Simply the Law of Life. We decided to go ahead and put it on television, on Facebook, on YouTube. What we would really like is if you would reach out to a friend and say, join Gary and Keith in this pursuit of happiness, because we're all in this world together.
We all were born on this big rock, and we're going to live here until we die. And remember, the stress that you're under probably doesn't matter that much. If you look at it this way, then say 5 years from now. One other thing, never ever make a decision or reply to anything that requires any emotion for at least 24 hours.
Greatest rule you've ever come up with.
24-hour rule. Don't do it. And I guarantee you your answer will be exactly the opposite of what you would have done if emotion was involved at that time.
Boy, you hit us all there when it comes to a text or an email or what we said. Thank you so much for taking this time to tune in to Simply the Law of Life. It's Gary and me on a search for happiness, and we hope that you'll stay with us and rejoin us again next week, right here at this very same time.
Thank you for watching Simply the Law of Life, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.
I'm Gary C. Johnson. You've seen these billboards and ads that say size matters. I agree. The size that matters is the size of the results the law firm gets for their clients. We have several multi-million-dollar verdicts here in Kentucky. In fact, our firm owns the record for the single largest personal injury verdict in the state of Kentucky. That's the size that matters to you. In Kentucky, give our firm the call.